All right, so here on Blue Squatch today we have Stephen Stamp or Stamper, and we have Adam Levy. So I love following you guys. You guys are both authors for Inside Lacrosse, and this is basically where I get all of my lacrosse information. This is where I get the deep dive for somebody like me who doesn't necessarily have the in depth. I've only been doing this for like 3 years, following box lacrosse. I love the history, the way you guys add things. Thanks so much for doing this, and basically, like I follow you guys on both of you on Twitter. If anybody's looking, we'll have links for all this in the description. And we are now posting on Instagram as well. So thanks again so much, guys. And we're going to try to do this to kind of get ready for the season. I am absolutely psyched. As you can tell, I'm sitting here rambling on, introducing you and not letting you talk. So I'm going to disappear now. Thanks so much, guys. And I'll leave you to it.
And wearing your Allegheny Arrows shirt, love that. Yeah, Can-Am had a great season. But we are here to talk NLL. I am here with the reigning Tom Borelli Award winner, Adam Levy. And we have some great stuff to get to. Again, go to IL Indoor. You can check all of it out there. There's a lot more than we'll be able to get to today. There are team previews, there are top 50 players coming out this week, which I'm sure is going to cause some irate fans and some excitement among others. And there's always lots of disagreement. We're going to start with a brand new situation, the Ottawa Black Bears. We're going to start, though, by looking back to the beginning of the Ottawa era in the National Lacrosse League, which was the Ottawa Rebel. They played their first game ever was back on December 21st, 2000. They played the Toronto Rock in Toronto. And then their third game was their first home game. That was January 5th, 2001. They played the Toronto Rock. So a nice little homage to the past, perhaps. I don't know if the league did that intentionally, having the Rock be the first team to come and play the Ottawa Black Bears. And we're going to talk about a bunch of things, but one thing I want to point out right off the bat, they came from Syracuse, where the Crush or the Smash, Crush, whatever, had been last for 3 years in a row. Wasn't working out. They go to Ottawa, become the Rebel, and they go 1-13, 4-12, 4-12. Not very successful on the floor. Then they went inactive. A couple years later, the franchise rights are bought by Bruce Urban. They go to Edmonton and become the Rush. Kind of a different team. The one big thing I think for this team is this is a competitive team. We expect them to make the playoffs. I think there are some people expecting them to do very well. And they have Jeff Teat. They have Zach Higgins. They've got Dan Ladouceur coaching. They've got a lot of good stuff going on in Ottawa. Adam, you're pretty dialed into this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, first of all, I am so excited to be here, and I have to give props to my fellow Borelli Award winner from years past and yourself for inviting me into the inside lacrosse space. So if you're doubting any opinions that we have, well, we've got two media award winners here, so I think you should probably take what we
have
say
mine here somewhere.
seriously.
Okay. Oh yeah, I do. I have one right here.
There you go.
sitting on a shelf on top of some books. I should put that up. But
it's a lovely memento. But yeah, the Ottawa Black Bears, first of all, I do want to touch on, you gave a great intro into the history. I would say if the NLL was doing this intentionally to have this Ottawa rivalry, makes a lot of sense. However, I'm sure those historians of lacrosse are feeling a little sad for Ottawa because Toronto actually was 6-0 against the Rebel in their history. And I actually learned yesterday as well that right now, or this was before the Ottawa Black Bears became the Black Bears and they were the New York Riptide, the Toronto Rock were 5-1 against the Riptide. So not a lot of success for these Ottawa connected teams versus Toronto. So hopefully the new look Black Bears are going to turn things around. But yes, I think Zach Higgins is a phenomenal goaltender. I think he got overlooked a lot in Philadelphia, or I think maybe people felt a little bad for him because he was facing so many shots. And of course, then he lets a lot in. His goals against average is going to go up. The defense, of course, now in Philly after he's left has changed, but the defense in front of him, I expect to really kind of buckle down. Matt Marinier and guys like that are going to be impressive. They've got Borgatti right back there.
Yeah, well, Callum Jones.
Yeah, and another year of Callum Jones, who is just unbelievable. I mean, seeing him in person last year a handful of times, I mean, what a dog, DAWG.
Yeah.
He is just a scrapper and a fighter. So I think it's a great situation for Zach. I think that another year of Jeff Teat is amazing. To have that continued connection of O'Connor, Connor Kiernan, Jeff Teat, Larson Sundown. When you've got your core offensive guys having another year to mesh, I think that's great. So, I also have to say that from the business side of things, this organization has a lot on its side. It seems like the partnership with the Senators, the Ottawa Senators, the National Lacrosse League is working out very well. There's a lot of media attention around the Black Bears in Ottawa. You've got banners everywhere. You've got promotions. You've even had recently TSN bringing on Nathan Grennan, an Ottawa native, who I actually also just wrote a feature on that you should go check out, which is, he's on TSN talking about the Black Bears and how cool that is for exposure. Obviously, you're in a community unlike Long Island where box lacrosse is king. You're not on Long Island where it's field lacrosse and you're having to kind of steal some fans. So I think it's going to be a very successful venture.
A bunch of things you brought up that I think are very interesting. First, Nathan Grennan is quite a character. I met him I hadn't met him in person. I met him at the Laxni in Utica back in would have been October, and he scored a crazy goal. And Greg, we got to put that up as a highlight for. I'm sure we've got that one. It was funny because we're doing the game, and somebody, I think Brooker Muir had just scored a wild goal down at the other end of the floor, and I was like, let's miss the face-off. Let's just watch the replay of that. And we're watching the replay when Grennan scores his goal, but we did, we got it for the replay. But Nathan Grennan jumps in the air, flings it around behind his back, like he's up like a couple feet off the ground, and it was spectacular. And I talked to him after because the next morning I saw people at the tournament, guys that were there before the first games, practicing that move, trying to emulate what he had done the day before. And I mentioned that to him, and he just laughed. He thought that was really funny because he said, I didn't practice it. I didn't. He just spurred the moment and jumped up, and it's like, oh, now what do I do? And, but it's amazing when you see this goal. You'll love it. But yeah, a lot of good stuff going on. What do you think about the Higgins trade? They gave up a first rounder in 2026. A huge loaded draft, great draft, one of the best stock drafts ever, I think. Phil Caputo and Liam Patton, whom they'd gotten from the Panther City dispersal. It's a lot to give up. I think they gave up another pick. There was a bit of a lower pick. They gave up a lot to get Zach Higgins, a 33-year-old goalie. What do you think of that trade?
Well, I think, again, if we look back at the context of trades, and especially with this organization, we should hope that it works out for the team. I still think that the team is kind of haunted somewhat by the ghosts of the trade that now has turned into the Philadelphia Wings getting Brennan O'Neill and taking Taggart Clark, who now we're going to see a full season of Taggart Clark on the offense. Mm-hmm. So you would hope that the Higgins trade does pan out. I think Higgins is a great goaltender, but you're right. The 26 and 27 drafts, as I think you've already been outlining on Inside Lacrosse, are really incredibly stacked drafts. So, it is a risk to take, but at the same time, I think Zach, if you're going to play with him and win with him, you've got a few years left of his really great excellence to do it. What is he, 30 years old, 31 years old?
I think he's 33.
Oh, okay. So there you go. So yeah, if you're really betting on Zach, then now is the time to get him. So I hope it works out. I think Zach is great. Yes, it is a risk, and there is a little bit of a history, recent history of these trades not working out. But for Zach's sake and for the organization's sake, and I do hope it works.
Yeah, I think you've got to be bold. I think he's a great goalie. I think he's underrated, underappreciated. He's one of the best in the game. I don't mind the trade at all. I know people were looking at it saying, wow, that's a lot for him. And some people thinking maybe they should have tried to get Nick Damude, whom Philadelphia had taken from Panther City, and he's now the Philadelphia starter. I had them, I think, 4 and 5 in my or 3 and 4 or something in my votes for goalie of the year last year. So they're very close, but I think Higgins can be a game changer, an absolute franchise goalie, and I can't wait to see him playing there. And I think the trade's okay. So we're going to move on. We will be coming up among the topics is what is happening with Christian Del Bianco and Tyler Pace to an extent in Calgary. So stick around for that. First, though, we are going to get to who is the best bet for an NLL Cup championship this year. And you can interpret that however you like, whether you actually want to think about the betting. I'm not a big betting guy, but so the best bet is at the longest odds, or you're going to get good odds on somebody who you think is going to win. Adam, I'll let you start.
Yeah, well, I think and it might be boring and kind of a chalk pick, and I did it last year for our Inside Lacrosse predictions, but I'm going the Toronto Rock again. I know that they have some injuries right now coming into this first week. You've got Brad Cree on the pup list. You've got TD Erlin out. As I spoke to Matt Sawyer yesterday, he's expected to be out at least 4 games, and he's obviously dominant at the faceoff X now. I don't want to get us to go down the rabbit hole of do faceoffs matter or not, but obviously,
or even the X versus dot situation. There's no X.
Exactly. And so, it'll be interesting to see without a big name like TD how that's going to change. But I think that with Latrell Harris coming back and he's looked good at camp. From what I hear, he's had a full camp. Tom Schreiber still injured. I think he's going to be playing this first game. I'm not sure. I know Sawyer said to expect him sooner rather than later.
Schreiber is on the active roster.
There you go.
To start, right? And Latrell Harris, sorry to interrupt, but Latrell Harris, I mean, he played for Canada at the World Championships. So right. He was back. He was wearing the leg sleeve, and he looked pretty good. I don't think he was at that point 100% of what he was before, but I mean his 100% is awfully high. I mean he was defender of the year in the National Lacrosse League.
He participated in all of camp, and it was actually only for maintenance reasons. They said that he didn't play in the last scrimmage or do much in this last weekend, but he should be fine and ready to go with Schreiber back. And then you've still got Mitch Desnew, who I know in some people to not see him on the NLL's top 25 defenseman list. Obviously, Brad Cree was on there, but you've got those two guys. Of course, you got another year of Nick Rose. So I think it's and also, when you've got supporting cast with, of course, Mark Matthews and Tom Schreiber, Chris Boucher, kind of, I don't even want to say quietly, but had another 30+ goal season last year.
Yeah.
So that offense is going to be stacked. I think that they're set up across the board, and they're going to be good again. Now, I will just say as a final caveat, with the age of Rose, and you're looking at Desnew and Cree as their age is kind of creeping up. Mark Matthews, of course, one of the older guys. You're running out of time with this group of guys. These guys that you're relying on a lot. So I think that now is kind of a year. Hopefully, they don't face the Bandits in the playoffs. That's going to be key.
I think, yeah. I mean, facing the Bandits, obviously. One thing, I mean, Nick Rose. I did last year when we did our IL indoor predictions. I said, hey, I'm pretty sure I picked Nick Rose to be goal of the year and said, hey, is it finally the year for Nick Rose? And he got it finally after so many close calls. And I did a story earlier where I don't think he ever should have won a goal of the year before. I think there was always somebody, whether it was Christian Del Bianco or Matt Vince over and over and over, that should have won it, but he was always close for several years now. The last 4 years have been the best 4 of his career. So can he keep that level up? I mean, I don't know. He just seems to keep getting better. He was, made Canada finally. He played for England in the 2015 Worlds and didn't make the team in 2019 and was, a pretty key member in this year. So I think Toronto's not a bad bet. I am going to go with a little bit different look. And I think when you look at the Albany Firewolves, you see a team that improved by 8 games last year, from 3 wins to 11. And generally, improvements like that are not sustainable. Most often when a team improves that much, they have a bit of a backslide the next year. But most teams that have improved by 8 games don't have Dyson Williams coming in and Zach Masson joining, who, trust me, is fantastic. He was a top defender in the Ontario Junior League, went and played hockey. He's now 28 and coming in as a rookie, and he is going to be outstanding. You've got Will Johansson, a first-round pick from a few years ago, who missed last season with an injury. He's coming in. They add so much. They've got a guy, Nicholas Volkov, who was a very good player last year. First rounder, played 13 games, was just getting the feel for the league. I think this year he's ready to explode. He might not even be able to make the roster. Their defense is so deep and strong. You've got, and another point, you've got Eric Fennell, who I think is going to be kind of the missing piece where they need somebody to bang around and kind of open space and be that big bodied banger. Like you've got a Ryan Smith in Rochester, you've got a guy like Dawson Theed in Halifax who kind of took over that role from Fennell. I think Fennell can make a big difference. They're loving what he's doing. So I'm going to go with the Albany Firewolves.
I love it. I go to those Firewolves games a lot, and I think you're totally right. Dyson is going to be fantastic. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I do hope it's not a recession year for them because, you know, they, as you just outlined, it's a really amazing roster. But that offense, wow, they're good.
I kind of see them having, you know, maybe winning 11 games again, somewhere around there, but then really putting it together in the playoffs because there's that saying in sports, you have to learn how to lose to learn how to win. Mm-hmm. And they lost the championship last year. They played pretty well against Buffalo. I mean, they weren't awful. They just, in all the key moments, Buffalo had the answers. And I think this year Albany comes back and they have the answers against whoever they're playing. That's just the way I'm thinking. So we'll see. Next topic. Again, we'll be getting back to Christian Del Bianco and things in Calgary shortly. First, though, one more thing.
Hang on, though, real quick, Stamper. I want to. I got to jump in here. Obviously, I think Albany is going to win, which of course goes without saying. But no, so you tie that right into you know, Dyson Williams being the Rookie of the Year, and what do you think that would mean for the longevity of a team? Because how often do you see back-to-back Rookies of the Year on a team? Have you ever seen it where you have a team 2 years in a row?
Yes.
I can just look that up right now.
Yeah. I will talk. I'll tell you what, one thing you don't see very often, and I've talked about this in my preview for Albany, which I don't think it's come out yet, but it's coming out soon. So keep going to IL Indoor to check it all out. But how often do teams have back-to-back 2 finalists for the Rookie of the Year? Last year, we had the Rookie of the Year, of course, was Alex Simmons. Ty Kurtz was also a finalist. I think Dyson Williams, obviously the odds-on favorite for Rookie of the Year this year. But what about Zach Masson? I think he could be. He's a veteran. He's an older player. He's a great defender. I think he's going to turn some heads. And I think the fact that Owen Grant was a finalist last year helps to open it up because there aren't a lot of defenders who have been Rookies of the Year or finalists. Even Jake Withers was, but he had the face-off factor, right?
Yeah, and it just as a quick note, and I'm actually that was a great question that you asked because it's only happened twice. So Jeff Teat and Tyson Gibson went back to back, and then you have to go all the way back from what I'm seeing to the 1996, 1997 Darren Fridge and Jeff Wilfong back to back rookie years on the same team. Yeah. So that is very cool.
Let's keep rolling talking about rookies. We've got one more topic to get to before we talk about Christian Del Bianco and everything going on in Calgary. And that is Dyson Williams is the presumptive favorite to be the Rookie of the Year. I think that's very reasonable. If he is not the guy who wins it, who is your non-Dyson Williams Rookie of the Year? And Adam, I'm going to let you go first. And I know who you're saying, and I like it.
So. Well, you know, I might, since we've last spoken about this, I might have changed my opinion.
Are you throwing a curveball?
So let me just first say that, and you know, in the coming days, you'll see on Inside Lacrosse, I have an extensive feature on the incoming number 1 overall pick from the 2024 NLL entry draft, Brendan O'Neill, who many people have high hopes on and think that he could win Rookie of the Year. I unfortunately am going to be a downer and say I don't think he is going to be the Rookie of the Year, not just because of Dyson. I think it's because of this fact that he understands and the coaching staff understands that he's going to be a project. He hasn't really played a lot of box. He played when he was younger for several years, but this was back in his teen years. More consistently with a travel team, but you know, he really has to get into the swing, and he's admitted from the first day of training camp to the last day of training camp that there's still so much he needs to work on. Now it's incredibly beneficial, and he's been living with the Philadelphia Wings guys, Mitch Jones, Deacon Knott, and Sam LeClaire for the last week and a half, and he's planning on living with them for a couple more weeks, but I think that, and that will help for sure, but I think it's going to be a project. Now, I was thinking about Adam Poitras I think that, if you look at Jonathan Donville coming in to run that offense, and he was just named, I don't know if he was just named captain or assistant captain. They just released that for the Desert Dogs, but he's on that leadership group now, which is great for him, especially
alternate captain, by the way.
alternate captain, where he
I'm a stickler.
where he, for him to come in, be a young guy, obviously we know what he can do. To be on that leadership group is great. But I was thinking to myself, how many opportunities are they going to get to have the ball? How much are they going to spread it? You've still got Jack Hanna there. You've got a couple of other options. I think Luke Pilcher's on there. Correct me if I'm wrong, Stamper, on some of these younger guys that are on the
Practice
offense
squad right now.
Yeah, and so I think that while I think Poitras is going to have a great year, I'm not sure it's Rookie of the Year worthy. And actually, hold on.
Don't take my guy. I know you're not going to steal my guy. So I think there's a lot of potential guys. One person I don't think is getting a lot of attention that I think could have a huge year and could score a ton of goals, which voters love, is Brock Haley of the Saskatchewan Rush, who was traded from Vancouver after they'd picked him. He was part of the big deal there. And he scored 74 goals in a season of Junior A lacrosse, the year that Whitby won the Minto Cup in 2022. And that was just in the regular season. In total, between the regular season playoffs and Minto, he scored 119 goals, I think it was. I'd have to look that up, but I think it was 119 goals or 114 goals in one summer of junior lacrosse. Went back to school, hasn't played yet, obviously, in the NLL. I think he could come in with that Saskatchewan team and score a ton of goals. And I think people would dig it. And I think he's a pretty good dark horse for this award.
Yeah, I actually that funny enough, that was going to be who I was going to say.
Oh, I'm so glad we switched order.
However, I am going to say someone else who I've always had high hopes on, and someone who was a great a high draft pick in the 2023 draft, coming in as a rookie, in Peyton Cormier in the Vancouver Warriors. A similar situation to Haley, in the sense that he's on a team that's on the upswing. He's going to have a lot of touches, I believe. You've got Charlie Beatty's there, you got Keegan Ball. I think Cormier is going to play a good part of this Vancouver Warriors offense. You see that things are really starting to click for them right now. He, again, just like Poitras and what he was at the collegiate level, Cormier, one of the few guys to have over 200 goals at the University of Virginia. So amazing talented scorer, obviously amazing in junior ball as well. So I think he could be one of those one of those dark horse guys.
Yeah, it's interesting with Cormier because he was never really fully healthy in the summer. So we didn't actually get to see what he can do in junior. We saw glimpses of it, and even in senior, he didn't play a ton with the Brooklyn Lacrosse Club, and I think it's interesting to see that he is obviously a great talent. The field lacrosse scoring is excellent, but we all know that's not a direct correlation. Mm-hmm. So I think it's those are very two diametrically opposed candidates in one way, and that Haley showed everything he can do in junior. Mm-hmm. And if he does it again, that's going to help. Cormier, we saw glimpses, a little snippet here and there. He's got a ton of talent. Vancouver was thrilled to get him at number 4 in that draft. And I think they're going to be pretty excited to see what he can do. I don't mind that pick at all. I think they were all very good candidates, with the caveat that, Dyson Williams is already the leader in the clubhouse as he enters the league.
Yeah, I think we can both agree that we're just doing this to see if something goes bizarre and Dyson doesn't win, who could win. I think we're both on the same page that Dyson is going to win.
I would think so, mainly because, you come in his situation with a very good team, but he's going to be a key component right away. You've got Ethan Walker over on that side, who's an alternate captain with New England, or with Albany again, who's a great player on the left side, but he's going to be great to work with. He's used to playing with teams that have tons of talent. When he played with the Peterborough Lakers, he wouldn't even dress for games his first year senior, because they had Mark Matthews, Corey Small, Corey Vidarelli, Holden Catoni, and Turner Evans in the lineup ahead of him, basically. So he's used to working with lots of other players. He'll do whatever you need. He's still going to score a ton, I think, but I think Dyson Williams steps in and basically is the 1A to Alex Simmons's 1 over on the right side. He's going to be where the ball goes through, and he's going to score a ton. He's going to look great. He's a legacy player, obviously, with a huge lacrosse IQ. It's pretty exciting. You've been doing some really cool work on that. Can we talk about it?
Of course we can. Yeah,
okay.
the Dyson Williams mini doc that I'm working on with the Albany Firewolves have helped out a ton. I have to give a huge shout out to them and the organization for kind of supporting this project that I'm working on with Rich Owens, who is a former NLL producer, as well as his production partner, Eric Weber, 2 great guys. We're actually going up this Saturday to get some final footage of his very first game, going in the locker room, doing some really cool stuff. That's going to come out. It's been awesome. And I have to say also a thank you to the Williams family, that you'll see them in there, from Coach Williams to Delana to Tamara and the entire Williams family. It's going to be a great documentary, and I can't wait for it to come out. Hopefully we'll have something ready for you in December.
They're a great bunch. The family. It's funny with Sean Williams, obviously a Hall of Famer, legendary player, and coaching GM and great dude. And Tamara is kind of the glue, right? That holds that whole thing together.
Yeah, no, she was amazing. I got to meet her, and it's been. I mean, they're just such a warm, inviting, open family, and to see them, so connected in so many ways. It's really beautiful to see.
And Sean, one of only 2 players to ever score 300 or more goals for the Brock Badgers in Kupla.
There's a Stamper nugget. I've never heard one of them. I think we got to start that trend now.
There you go. Brandon Slade is the other, now a defender with the Rochester Nighthawks. Is the other. He was a legendary player in Kupla as well. Anyway, we are going to move on to our main topic. Greg, do you want to jump back in? There he is. All right, we're going to move on. And what on earth is going on in Calgary? I mean, we've looked at this. You had a big story with Christian Del Bianco talking about what's happening. He came out in the very unorthodox move in the middle of the summer, saying, hey, thank you, Calgary fans. Thank you, everyone in Calgary. I'm done there. I won't be back, while he was still their property. And he doesn't want to play there. He wants to play in Vancouver. He admitted quite freely. I'm not sure if he's supposed to do that, actually. But he said, obviously Vancouver. He works there. He has a business there. He makes homes, right? So it makes sense for him to be there. But it's been a very public and very, there's been some acrimony. Give us a little insight, because you've been talking to him and you had the great story.
Yeah. I was. I've been talking to Christian throughout the summer, kind of trying to gauge what's been going on. But yeah, he was very open and honest, and I think one of the most insightful things that we learned out of the conversations that I had with him was the fact that he had been trying to have conversations with the Roughnecks from the beginning of the off season, and nothing was really being taken seriously, according to Christian. And so he went to social media to kind of force their hand to really say, look, I've been telling you, I want this to happen. Nothing's really happening. So let's I'm going to call your bluff. And so he did. And it seemed like, it did perk up the ears of Rochester, of the Roughnecks, to say, okay, we understand we have this situation. But franchise tagging him, I get it. We were coming up on the free agency deadline. I think that everyone in the world was hoping that they could find a trade deal. Of course, he wants to be in Vancouver. But I think that he's when you've already told people that you're out of Calgary to not have a trade deal on the table, to not get that done before the season, it's a downer for everybody. He wants to be playing in this league. He's super talented. He's playing in the Arena Lacrosse League now, which, by the way, I saw actually a guy who is no longer with the Vancouver Warriors, and Tyrell Hammer-Jackson, who is also playing in the Arena Lacrosse League, actually just scored 2 goals on Del Bianco in the last game they played against him.
Is that the one where the 30-12 game? Or no, that was the different game.
That was a different game.
Okay.
But yeah, he right off the face-off draw, Hammer got it and then ran down and scored 2 on Del Bianco. You don't see that very often. But
no.
I think it's an unfortunate situation. Del Bianco wants to be where he wants to be, but you also have to understand completely from a business standpoint. I think the majority of people think Christian Del Bianco is the best goaltender in the world. If they're going to trade him, they better get a lot back in return. And asking for that from any team, it's going to be very hard to negotiate that kind of deal. So I think that it's all about time. And, I know that we're going to get into what's going on with Tyler Pace as well, but
And I wanted to jump in here real quick, though. I mean, do you
Yeah.
find this indicative of the new way Calgary is running things? I mean, this is not a good way to
No,
start things off at
no.
all.
it's
And
not
I'm
a
just
good
kind of
way at all.
curious as to what your thoughts are on that, because I mean, you've got Sanderson, right? Is his name? Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Josh Anderson, yeah,
Yeah.
the
So I
coach.
mean, he's up there, and what a way to start. But I mean, could you imagine how frustrated Del Bianco? Because by all accounts, he seems like a super nice guy who wouldn't have forced the issue if he didn't
Mhm.
feel like he really had to.
So Del Bianco is a good dude, and I think he is probably the best goalie on the planet. He was just named the All World Team goalie for the World
Mhm.
Championship after he led Canada to another gold medal, and he's very active on social media. I think it's all playing out a lot on social media because he'll respond to people. Like when Adam's story came out, somebody said some people were being negative. Somebody from Orangeville was like, "Oh, they should just sit him or whatever." Like, and I
Yeah.
hope they do franchise tag him for 5 years. And Del Bianco replied, "Yeah, always somebody from the Ville trying to let me rot for 5 years." And it's funny. But it plays out very much on there. And somebody else was saying, "Oh, you want to take something that's not in your rights, in the CBA, and get free agency." And it's like, no, he's not trying to get free agency. He's asking to be traded. Players do that at times, and it is his right to not play. I think that's one thing. People are saying, "Oh, well, the CBA says you can tag him. He has to play there." He doesn't have to play there. If he's going to play, he has to play in Calgary. He doesn't have to play. Nobody has to play. So he's not actually doing anything that's wrong by the rules of the CBA. And I think that's important to keep in mind. But for Calgary, has been something for them. And I think you look at it from the other perspective, and you think about what Jamie Dawick was just saying on the podcast, on the Lacrosse
Last night.
Classified podcast, and he was saying, "Hey, enjoy the season because when we fight for a new CBA, there may not be a league." Now that's very dire. I think they'll work something out, but some of the teams are saying we have to hold the line here. We can't let extra perks happen and all these things. And I think you look at Calgary over the years. I mean, Wes Berg's situation was a few years ago where he sat out a full season and then eventually wound up going to San Diego. And you go back all the way to like Tracy Pulaski, Sean Evans. Calgary's had guys who were really good players who they just weren't in Calgary. Things just didn't really work out for them because I think largely Calgary tries to hold the line and really stick to the CBA. And I don't really blame them for that either. I think you have to think about the viability of the league when you're some of the teams. And I mean, there's always contentiousness among owners and among teams, who's doing this and who's doing that. And, and I think I get Calgary's side of this as well. Although I think, and I don't know if you want to jump in on that, Adam, but I think you bring up the trade. What would happen in a trade? How hard would it be? Obviously, Del Bianco wants to go to Vancouver. Obviously, Kurt Malosky would love to have him there. They've got Aiden Walsh, who is a good young goalie, but unproven and was near the bottom of the league in save percentage last year. I think a really fascinating exercise is what would be involved in the trade.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm Calgary, I'm saying we're not giving up Christian Del Bianco without getting a lot. I'm asking for Reed Bowering. I'm asking for a 26 first rounder, and maybe Ryan Martell.
I'd give it to him in a heartbeat.
That's interesting. Now, I would say, and I'd have to go back and check on two things. And under Kurt Malosky, even when he was with Calgary, is, I take him as a guy who doesn't really involve in like really complex multi-piece trades, because I think that he is a guy that values players, and obviously he values assets. And I think that that's probably one of the big hiccups. If, Malosky is a guy who does the opposite of trading away picks, especially first round picks, and especially picks that are in very stacked drafts. And so he loves to build through the draft. He loves to find guys that he can work with. And I think he's in the process of doing that. And, Vancouver's success last year doesn't help the situation, because what are you going to do? You're going to trade away a lot of big pieces when things improve so greatly, and then you're not even going to give that core who you've developed a relationship with a chance to continue to improve. The timing,
100%.
the timing's
absolutely
not
are. I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think you absolutely do, because it's Christian Del Bianco.
Yeah.
And I know,
What does
and
he add to your offense, though? I mean, he not only is a great goalie, but he starts that offense. I think he's one of the best transition goalies that I've ever watched play the game. I mean, he
Mhm.
oh,
he
he's the
is,
best ever.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I think as well.
Yeah.
He's like Patty O'Toole or some of the other great passing goalies. He does add a lot, and you've got guys who can fly you. You're gonna have Braden Lady running down the floor, and maybe Reed Bowering.
Mhm.
In my scenario, he's part of the trade. I just feel like if you're Kurt Malosky, first of all, he's only been a GM for 1 year. So we don't
Yeah.
have a lot of track record for his trading history. He's a
Mhm.
very smart lacrosse guy. I think he recognizes that he's built a very good team faster than I thought it could happen, honestly. Like where they were coming from a year ago, I thought Mouse is going to make a big difference there. They're going to improve. But everyone was like, oh, they're going to be in the playoffs this year. I'm like, that seems like a stretch the first year of the new era. And they almost made it. They were
Almost.
they were in that 5-way tie for the last playoff spot.
Yeah.
So they've improved very fast. I think they'll keep improving. Excuse me. But I think Del Bianco could be the missing piece there.
It could be. And now I would just say as a
know.
quick note, obviously you're right. Yeah, Malosky first year officially as a GM, but obviously even as the head coach and having so much influence in Calgary, Mike Board was definitely bringing Kurt in on every conversation, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I don't know. What do you see as a trade? What would Calgary need, do you think, Adam, to get to be willing to finally pull the trigger on a Del Bianco trade?
That's a great question. I think Ryan Martell is an interesting choice. Obviously, he's on the up and up. It would be also kind of an interesting storyline again, because he was one of those old roughneck guys, and so he would be going back just as Dixon and Dobie. But I think, you would need to be able to build from the back again, and so getting a guy like Reed Bowering, I think, is huge. They're not going to trade away Owen Grant or Braden Lady. Those guys, I think, are in Vancouver and for a long time, and two fantastic, incredibly young players that are going to be great for them. I couldn't see anyone going from the offense, but if you're talking big names, I mean, would you trade a Charlam Beatties to Calgary and make that work? I don't know. I
don't know.
Yeah.
See, that's where it gets tricky.
I don't know. The goalie's the most important position, though. I mean, really, unless you have somebody that Calgary feels like is coming up the pipe that they can draft or mold, is there anything worth it to a team that feels that way?
I don't know. Stamper, do you like Connor O'Toole enough? Put him in a deal?
Oh, intriguing. So that's the thing to me, the sticking point. Who does Calgary get in net? They've got Cam McLeod now. They drafted. He's a very talented, very promising young goalie. He's played like 5 games, parts of 5 games. He played a couple of games in the NLL. Hasn't done great, but I mean, nobody usually does when they first start. So I think he's good. But if you're going into the season with Cam McLeod as your starter, I don't think that's a playoff situation.
Right.
I think that's a problem. I think Aiden Walsh, another very young player, young goalie. Goalies take a while to prove themselves. Is he the guy you want? I don't think so. I think maybe he is. Maybe he is. He is another promising young player. I don't know if Vancouver gives up Connor O'Toole. That's a tricky one. Maybe that's who it has to be. And I mean, Christian Del Bianco is only like 28,
27, I think. Yeah,
27
at 18.
So you're going to have him. Yeah. So I don't know. Oh boy, that's interesting. What if it is Connor O'Toole? Because that's the thing to me. If you're Calgary, what are you getting if you're giving up Del Bianco? So maybe it is Connor O'Toole. And if I'm Kurt Malosky, am I giving up Connor O'Toole? Then again, you're getting Del Bianco at age 27. He's your goalie for the next 12 years.
Yeah.
I'd hate to do it, but I'd probably give up Connor O'Toole and Reed Bowering and Ryan Martell and a 26 first rounder.
Okay, there you go.
That's what I would offer.
Yeah.
Boy, that's a lot, eh?
that was
That
my
is a
big
lot.
question. I think honestly we should end on that. I think that's perfect. We're at 40 minutes of recording, and yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's like a great ending. I've got a bunch of things written to clip, so I'll make some shorts out of some stuff. Um, so Adam, at 26 minutes, I've got you made a comment about that. I'll try to cut you like a little short that you'll get so you can promo it. Do you know when your documentary thing's gonna come out?
No, I know that I'm being brought in for some editing touches towards the end of what they're doing I think it's December 9th or 10th or something like that. And then I would imagine it would probably be within the next 3 weeks or something like that. But I don't have a date yet on that.
All right, so I'll cut you short of that. And then
And then
I
if you
had
could
a couple other
do
things.
a little house cleaning on my brain fog
Yeah,
moment.
no, I wrote that time down, so I got it. Yeah, no, and that's why you'd see me pop up occasionally in those ones.
Yeah.
Is basically every time you saw my face pop up was when I'm going through to edit. I'll be able to see, okay, I'm there until the last segment there, because that way, like I'd pop up for a second, I was like, oh wait, we got to go back and clean that up. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It
So
was
we
kind of
didn't
funny
touch
because
on.
when you said you're not doing Poitras, I'm like, you can't kick Haley. He's my guy.
I
So
was.
I'm like, I'm jumping in.
I do think Haley. I think Haley is going to be one of those finalists, possibly.
Yeah.
We didn't touch on pace. I don't know if we wanted to
Oh,
quickly do
Oh,
that, but there's not a lot really to talk
yeah.
about publicly. It just seems like
Yeah.
it's not going to work out. They're not going to agree on a number.
I think that would be kind of a downward spiral at the end if we went back and did it. I think the ending's good as it is.
Yeah,
So,
I love that.
yeah.
Cool.
perfect.
Yeah.
We'll catch up on it.
Brilliant.
So, yeah, thank you guys so much for taking the time to do this. I hope we can do it at least, once a month. I'd like to do it more, but I think once a month touch base with you guys is awesome. I love the
Yeah. Sure.
perspective. Everybody check out Inside Lacrosse. All the links for these guys' social media and all of their articles will be in the description. And really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this. I learned so much through these, and I do have to say, O'Toole was basically what I was getting at with the trade. Is would you give him up? I was very curious. 100% I am. I will give anybody anything they want for the best goalie, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't mind that. As soon as you mention his name, I'm just like, oh, that's a tough one. But if you're gonna get Del Bianco, okay. So it's hard. And I mean, not that if I'm Vancouver, I don't want to give up Reed Bowering either. But
Right.
you have to give up great players.
But it is interesting also because you talk about what could happen bringing in Del Bianco. You give up Connor O'Toole, as is the plan for Molosky, and especially with Crowley there and stuff like that. They're trying to build from within BC, and so you get Christian Del Bianco there. The amount of goalies that are going to want to come and play under Christian Del Bianco is a ton, and so I don't think they're going to have trouble in the future finding someone
Right.
to replace him.
Yeah, awesome.
I'll
No, that's
throw a
a
name out.
great point.
The kid in Coquitlam. Oh my God, what's his name? I can't. Jack.
At Cask.
Jack Cask. How about
He's
him in a couple of
and
years?
he is a literal Del Bianco protege.
There you go.
They've worked together for about a decade. So
Yeah.
Ooh,
So try and get him.
yeah,
awesome.
I
Good
know
call.
I know Gordon would love that.
Yeah, see those little tidbits right there. I love that information. Thanks, guys, so much. Really appreciate everybody taking the time.
Thank you. Great to see you both.
Yeah, great to see you. Let's do it again soon.
Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Please like and subscribe, and please consider joining our channel membership and buying us a beer every month or a coffee, depending on what you're into.